23 million Americans suffer with addiction. Another 75 million love one of those addicts. Everyone knows someone affected by addiction. Hello, my name is Sam W., and this is Inside Addiction, and I'm a recovering addict. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I had one brother, two sisters, and it was a single parented home. My mother, she raised all four of us. My father, he was around to about the age of 4 or 5 for me, and I had 3 siblings beneath me. I need to say that it was a tough neighborhood. It was a real tough neighborhood. My mother struggled with raising us and keeping us, safe and fed and clothed. She's a strong woman. She's still, one of my best friends in my life. My neighborhood was a real challenging neighborhood it's an inner city neighborhood where there was a lot of poverty, a lot of challenges for young kids who didn't have a whole lot of guidance. I think my heroes were guys who had on shark skin suits, and they were cool, and they walked and talked, real hip, as they called it at that time. I'm 50, so I was born in 1961. And around 1969, I think I was really starting to come outside a lot. There was a lot of activities going on. It was a fast-paced neighborhood that I lived in. There was a lot of number running, a lot of getting high, a lot of drugs. And it was a challenge just on some days just to get to school. You had to get past bullies, you had to get past, garbage in the streets. There's a lot of different things. It was an area in a neighborhood that was, I would say, somewhat deprived in some ways, but it was also rich in a lot of other ways. But you just had to dig through a lot of the garbage to get to some of that. I was a good kid in academics. I did very well in school. There were a couple of bullies that I always had to kind of navigate around. They weren't impressed with academic achievements, and they weren't, shy about letting you know that. I need to say that those are some of the pressures, I should say, or some of the leverages that compelled me to try to fit in with people. I had to kind of bring myself down a little bit to fit in. I had to. They weren't interested in how smart I was and how many A's I got in school, and because there was no encouragement or support, I kind of started to let that fall to the wayside. I think the first time I came outside, the first incident that I can really remember clearly was a guy running from the police. It was a hot summer night, and I saw this dude running by, and he was sweating, and a few seconds behind him was a police in hot pursuit. And I went around the corner. I think I couldn't have been no more than 5 or 6, and I saw this. It ended with the guy laying out on the ground. I believe the police shot him, and it was a big crowd around him, and I peeked through the crowd, and I remember looking, and it was kind of like, I guess, a heads up and prelude to, how life was going to be. So that's part of like what kind of propelled me into trying to be cool, trying to fit into society's idea of hip, or I should say my community's idea of hip. And you had to be tough. You had to be tough. You had to stand up for yourself in a lot of areas that you were afraid. You had to kind of deal with, a lot of different issues that you weren't necessarily prepared for, like poverty, like not having, like feeling less than or feeling inadequate or feeling like you didn't measure up in certain areas and thinking that if you didn't have it, that you weren't good enough. And after a while, those things seemed to be the things that you needed in order to validate yourself. So my main focus began to be things like doing the things that made other folks feel good about me. Then when you felt good about me, then I could feel good about me. I needed your validation. I need to say school began to be something of a bother, if you will, or a place to just go and play as opposed to working and doing the things that I was good at. I was extremely good in school. I went to some of the best schools in New York City, and I did well, as long as I didn't indulge in other behaviors and find myself influenced or persuaded by, those who I thought had an inside lane to a good time. And with that being said, I realized at this particular point that, there were a lot of good things that I pulled and drawed from as a child, but there were some things that definitely its whole purpose was to negate my progress in positive ways, in positive areas. So I found myself making bad choices, actually doing bad things, and justifying and rationalizing why it was all right. Well, the first time I used, it actually was a two-part kind of process. I think I was in the 5th grade, and we went to the local liquor store. We got a bottle of, at that time, Tiger Roll. Me and 3 other guys put our nickels and dimes together. We gave 15 cents to the wino who was outside the liquor store, and he went in and he bought us a bottle of Tiger Roll. We sipped on that. That didn't really affect us. Later on that evening, though, one of the neighborhood bullies, I would say, and that was only because he had such a large family, but he was respected. He wasn't one of the guys you mess with. Not that he was such a terrible guy, but we found ourselves in the park one night, that same evening actually, and he had some marijuana, he had some weed, and it was in the 5th grade that I found myself behind my public school smoking marijuana with this guy. And it was funny because he seemed to that was the first time he actually really recognized me. I mean, he knew who I was, but it wasn't in a respectful way. At this particular point, he was, looking at me saying, "Oh, you get high." And that seemed to be my passage of rights. It gave me the doorway into being accepted. And to be quite honest, it was fun. We had a good time. But the reality of it is I just didn't know how to go home after the party was over. I went seeking and stayed in pursuit of, other gatherings like that where it didn't matter what the cost was. So my first time was actually one of fun and exploration, yet also one of an attempt at being accepted by those who I didn't feel I was accepted by initially. Well, from that particular point of using marijuana and Tiger Roll, 80-cent bottle of Tiger Roll, my disease progressed rapidly. I need to say it wasn't long after which I was copping drugs on my own. I didn't need to run into someone else to do it for me. I was drinking a lot of Boone's Farm, still doing school. I think I was still in public school, and we went to go buy some marijuana, me and 2 other young ladies who were in the same, matter of fact, they were a little younger than me, to be quite honest. And we went to go buy some weed, and the guy